Hi, I'm Daniel Metler from Tusik Internet Solutions, and in this short video I'd like to teach you a little bit more about security and WebAPI. The reason why we need security is because all this stuff is just JavaScript requests, and the server needs to know whether it's allowed to do this for an anonymous user or not. So if you look at a simple example, here we have a contact form, and of course if an anonymous user submits a feedback, this user should be able to create new data in the database because he's allowed to submit feedback. On the other hand, if the user, for example, has this kind of an admin form, and let's just say somebody knew you're running this app and he would just post requests to your web API because he knows what the request looks like, he could delete data on your server without the right permissions. And to make sure that works, DNN has prepared a few very simple tools for us that just work really well. So let's look at that. I'm going to quickly show you how to ensure what permissions the user has and how to make sure it's only used from your pages. What does this mean? Let's look at the permissions first and dive into the code. If you look at a standard web API controller, I'm on the feedback controller here from inside the tutorial web API app that I installed in previous videos. I'm in the API folder in the feedback controller, and what you will see here is that creating a new piece of feedback, this is the action called create, has this attribute here, I hope you can read it, called DNN module authorized, we need access level anonymous. This makes sense because anonymous users are allowed to call this method and are allowed to create new data. So I'm saying as a programmer, this code is pretty safe. A user without permissions should be able to call this. Let's look at something more restrictive. For example, let's change the status of an item. Let me show you in the browser. In here, if I am on this item, I've just reviewed it and I say, okay, I'm done here. I'm going to press complete. And this is the message that we showed previously. For example, doing a complete status change is something an anonymous user should not be able to do. Let's imagine you have anonymous users can add new feedback or reviews for your product. Then they should not be able to automatically say my review has been validated. So this requires access level edit. Same thing for the delete down here. Deleting something changes data in a way that we don't want anonymous permissions. Access edit. There's other permissions as well, in addition to anonymous and edit. Just look it up in the DNN documentation. And I'm sure actually this list will change in the future. I'm sure there will be more in the future. So look into this, and the most important ones you'll usually be using is anonymous and edit. Now there's one more thing that we need to understand, and this is not just the fact that we want to make sure the permissions are correct, but sometimes, let's say we have this form here, then an anonymous user can actually call it, but he should be on our website when he uses our call. So let's make a simple example. I'm going to start Fiddler to just look at what's happening on the wire, and I'm going to post a request here like, what is this? I love this. I'm going to send that. So I just submitted a simple web API request, and if I would look at Fiddler and see what happens, then, basically, I could just resubmit this request to a different server and then automatically generate thousands of feedback items. I could do that. And that would cause a lot of problems. To protect us against that, you will actually see that there's some funky cookies included here. If you look at this entire request, in addition to the data which I just submitted, of course, there's also this thing here called the request verification token. It's an encrypted piece of whatever, which more or less says the user is really on the correct page and on the correct module, and this page has been loaded recently. So if I would now submit this same request, it's just a piece of text, right? I could just copy it and send it to another server. You may not know how to do this, but it's very easy. But if I would send this to somebody else's DNN website, then this encrypted token here would be wrong because on that page it expects a different encrypted token. So in other words, if I want to make sure it only works on my pages, then I have to add this piece of code, validate anti-forgery token. Without this, the web API is open for other callers as well. And there may be cases where you want to be able to do that. Maybe you have a website which has an API delivering numbers, for example, how many users are on my website. And maybe you want to show this on a different website. Or you want to say, you want to make this thing work together with Outlook, and so Outlook needs to call some web API requests. Other systems need to talk to your web API. Then you don't want to validate the anti-forgery token. But if you want to make sure it's just called from your site, use the anti-forgery token and you're all set to go. Security built in just the way you need it. So I think this is a really great feature. Don't worry about that. It's just Fiddler telling me something. So this is a really great feature. I hope you like it. In the next videos, we're going to look at routing of our web API call. Like, why is our feedback controller addressed correctly? Why is that code executed? And debugging problems when using web API. I hope you liked it. This was Daniel Mettler, 2SIC Internet Solutions for the DNN community.